This is the story of one of the biggest movie flops in history. A movie that lost so much money it actually caused a shift in Hollywood. It was supposed to be an epic action film with huge special effects, but somehow it got even worse than that. And to understand how this movie was made, we need to go back a few years before the movie's release. In 2014, Sony was looking for their next big franchise. They already had the Spider-Man movies, with Amazing Spider-Man 2 being released that same year. But they wanted something more, something bigger. That's when they bought the rights to the comic book character, giving the director's chair to Alex Cross, who had just wrapped up the first 2 John Wick movies and was riding high off the success of those films. The plan was for this new movie to start shooting by the end of 2015, but a year went by and nothing happened, and then another year went by and still nothing. It wasn't until late 2016 that we got any real news about the project. In January 2017, it was announced that Tom Hardy would be playing the lead role, which generated some serious hype. Then the rest of the cast started to come together. Jake Gyllenhaal was in talks to play the villain, with Riz Ahmed and Sterling K. Brown also joining the cast. But behind the scenes, things were not going smoothly. The studio was pushing for a summer 2018 release date, which meant the movie needed to start shooting very soon. But pre-production was taking longer than expected, and they weren't ready. So they pushed the release date back a whole year. But still, a year later, they were nowhere near being ready to shoot. By this point, the original director, Alex Cross, had left the project due to creative differences, and now Sony was looking for a new director to take over. After considering a few different options, they brought in a relatively unknown director named Julius Avery, whose only feature-length film had grossed less than $1 million at the box office. But what Sony lacked in having a big-name director was a problem, because now they had Tom Hardy, right? Well, not exactly. Throughout all this time, there had been rumors swirling about Tom Hardy leaving the project, and that's exactly what happened. He ended up leaving in October 2018. Less than a year before the film was supposed to start shooting. It seemed like the project was doomed to fail. Sony had been trying to make this movie happen for 6 years, and it looked like it would never happen, but they weren't done yet. At the last minute, they brought in actor and filmmaker Tom Hopper to replace Tom Hardy, but this led to more problems, because now Hopper had to play catch-up on a movie that was starting production in just 3 months. And if that wasn't enough, they also brought in a new screenwriter. So instead of having the luxury of getting to know the script and developing a strong connection to the material, Hopper only had weeks to learn everything about the character and the world he was about to be thrown into. And as if this movie couldn't get any more chaotic, the leading lady backed out a week before filming was set to begin, and they had to completely rewrite the script to remove her character. Now they had a movie, a director, a star, and no one to shoot it. After searching for a replacement, they ended up hiring actress India Isley, who had mostly done small roles up until this point. With all of this chaos, it's no wonder why this movie would bomb. But let's talk about the plot. In the comics, Venom is a character that has a symbiotic relationship with Spider-Man. But since they didn't have the rights to Spider-Man, they had to come up with a new origin story for the character. So, in this movie, Venom is a space alien who crash lands on Earth and bonds with a man named Eddie Brock, played by Tom Hopper. Together, they become a lethal protector of innocent people. But there's a twist. See, there's a good version of Venom, and then there's a bad version of Venom. And somehow this movie makes both versions of Venom the protagonist. Yeah, you heard that right. The entire movie is about these two Venoms trying to protect the Earth from another alien who wants to destroy it. And somehow this movie is even worse than that. This movie doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It tries to be a comedy, but it's not funny. It tries to be an action movie, but it's not thrilling. It tries to be a superhero movie, but it's not inspiring. In fact, it's one of the worst movies I've ever seen. You can tell that everyone involved with this movie tried their best, but it was doomed to fail from the moment they decided to make Venom the hero. Instead of making a fun action movie that everyone could enjoy, they turned it into a confusing mess that only comic book fans would like. And even they would probably be disappointed. It's no wonder why people hate this movie so much. It's not entertaining, it's not funny, and it doesn't make any sense. When this movie came out in 2021, it grossed just under $40 million worldwide, which was less than half of its production budget. The movie was such a disaster that it actually caused Sony to lose faith in comic book movies, and they haven't produced a comic book movie since. Now, I recommend you watch this movie if you want to see what happens when a movie goes terribly wrong.